A big issue that could come up besides the economy, as we mentioned at the outset of the show, and certainly if this Congresswoman has her way, national security, ISIS, bad guys wanting to hit us over here and soon. She was way ahead of the curve on this, the Democratic Congressman Tulsi Gabbard, the fine state of Hawaii. What I love about the Congresswoman she's on is I always hear from Democrats who are ticked off of what she has to say and Republicans who are ticked off. So you're a mutual offender, I guess. Are the candidates talking on either side enough about these issues to your liking?
No, they're not. And they're not being held accountable for their positions on these issues of national security, on these issues of how to defeat not just ISIS, but Al-Qaeda, Jabhat al-Nusra, and a number of the other Islamic extremist groups that do pose a threat to the American people and the United States.
Well, they say that it's the administration's fault for not being more diligent. Do you hear anything out of the Republican candidates that sounds more aggressive?
I listened to some of the debate that we had just last night, and I had an early wake up, but
okay.
I listened to the part relating to national security and foreign policy, and was disappointed to see that there was a lot of strong talk against ISIS, but the reality on the ground in Syria today is that if ISIS is defeated, you have Al-Qaeda affiliated group Jabhat al-Nusra that is poised to take over all of Syria and create this emirate or caliphate there that would be a hub for Al-Qaeda.
In other words, another morphed terror group, right?
Exactly.
And that's always the
And that's the key here, Neil, is that people talk about ISIS, but you're not talking about the ideology, the radical Islamist ideology that's fueling ISIS, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and a whole variety of other ones.
Ted Cruz says you bomb until the sand glows.
Well, I want to say why I think that there's not enough focus being put on these Islamic extremist groups with the current policy, which I think is important to recognize, and that is because the current policy is the United States is working with so-called allies like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and other states to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad and are aiding and supporting directly many of these Islamic extremist groups in doing that. So
but we never know who our friends are, right? I mean, one group we think is going to be a group we can work with. We found out we can't work with them.
Well, we need to know who our enemy is. We need to know who our enemy is in order to
I don't think we ever do, Congresswoman. I remember the Arab uprising. We just celebrated, I guess, that 5th anniversary of that. We hooked up with the wrong folks.
And that's why it's important for those who are seeking to be our commander-in-chief to exercise foresight, to have a military mindset to where they're making decisions that will impact our country, our men and women in uniform, how we expend our resources. They better be looking ahead to see what are the consequences to this decision. How will this country or that country react to the action that we take? What will our response to that be? And take that down the line so that we don't end up being in a position today where we're repeating the same mistakes of the past, just like we're seeing in Libya. 2011, the president, Secretary Clinton, Senator McCain, Senator Graham championed the overthrow of Gaddafi. The result today is a failed Libyan state, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Islamic extremist groups poised to take over
and
that
emerge.
country. Some
of them are merging into one big force.
Exactly, which is why you can't be attached to one specific
Well, what do you think
group.
of Hillary Clinton's approach to this and her stewardship of the State Department?
Well, I think it was a failed decision, like I said,
right.
by Secretary Clinton, the president, Senator McCain, and others, and they need to acknowledge that that was a bad decision in Libya. And it's important for them to acknowledge this because then hopefully they will acknowledge the fact that what is happening in Syria now is going to be a repeat of the exact same thing. And if we acknowledge this now, if our leaders acknowledge this now, then we can stop our country from repeating that same mistake, which would, by the way, end up with a far more disastrous result if they're successful in Syria.
Have you ever thought if we're too late? I raised this with Donald Rumsfeld, that maybe these groups, particularly ISIS, have morphed into these multi-cell, tentacled units all over the world. Whether we had the arrest of a guy who was sympathetic in Milwaukee to this guy who was outside Disneyland Paris, that they're everywhere now.
Well, I'll say this, the longer we wait, we've waited too long to take this threat seriously, to identify and understand and know our enemy and take action to defeat them. We should have done it immediately after 9/11 when they attacked us here on our soil.
Right.
But the longer we wait, the greater risk we are at of having to deploy American troops, of having to expend vast amounts of our American taxpayer dollars, our American lives to go and defeat
But
this enemy.
we never learned. Real quick, on Hillary Clinton, what do you think of her? What do you think of how her race is going?
I think we've got an interesting race on the Democratic ticket.
You haven't committed to her or Bernie Sanders?
I'm a vice chair of the DNC, so I claim neutral territory.
But you were just very critical of her.
Well, I would be critical, similarly, of any other candidate, and I have been, of other candidates.
To be fair, you've gone after both sides.
Who espouse those policies.
But this email stuff and stuff that was top secret that might have been released, and now a bunch of emails that are too secretive to be released, does that concern you?
I'm watching the investigation carefully to see how this thing goes through. Generally, of course, there should not be secret, classified, top secret information being put out into an open public server. This is
so when she says it wasn't intentional, does that give any solace to you?
I'm watching it carefully. I want to see how this investigation works out and see what they uncover.
All right, Congresswoman, great pleasure seeing you, Tulsi Gabbard. We didn't even get to talk about Adele this whole tussle, but maybe next time, Congresswoman.
Call Neil Adele.
Call Neil. She's not, but I'm sure I'm just missing the call. Pam in the control room, has Adele called? She's not. Okay, fine.